Well,
Okay,
thank you.
great.
Yeah, now we're all set. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We love technology when it works, and when it acts up, it's frustrating, but we just have to be patient. So, thank you for being here today. I'm Karen Jacobs. I'm the founding editor of the journal Work, and it's with my pleasure that I have our speaker today join us from Jordan and also give a bit of background about himself. So, welcome so much for being here. And I'm turning the webinar over to you.
Thank you, Professor Karen, and I'm sorry for the glitches that happened with technology. The funny thing that my last solo article was comparing online teaching against traditional teaching. I was a pioneer, or I am a pioneer in online teaching, but it happens. Anyways, so without further delays, thank you for joining us today, and thanks for Work Webinar and Work Journal and Professor Karen. My talk today is about mental and physical health, quality of life. And I'm sorry because I don't have the pointer with me, so bear with me. My name is Qadir Al Mihdawi. I'm an associate professor of occupational therapy and rehabilitation. Got my education in Jordan and in Minnesota, United States. My major or main specialty is in stroke rehabilitation. I developed the occupational therapy task-oriented approach. I wrote in physical dysfunction, Trombley textbook, evaluating motor deficits, both neurological challenges. But my line of research is about physical dysfunctions in affecting adults' physical dysfunctions, and specifically occupational stress. So that being said, I have been studying occupational groups and been honored to publish in Work Journal. That is a very optimum environment for my publication. So thank you for coming today. Next slide, please. So today we are going to talk about mental and physical health related quality of life and their associated factors affecting college students in a comprehensive allied health institution. So we are studying quality of life among allied health students such as physiotherapy, occupational therapy, radiography, etc. And we will go through a brief background. We will talk about the studies, this specific article methods, results, and then I'll talk about related studies. Then I'll shift to talk about some design considerations in case there are graduate students attending, and the limitations and future directions in addition to the conclusions. Next slide, please. So it's not easy to define quality of life. And why quality of life? As I told you before, I'm targeting occupational stress in among specific occupational groups. So I started to study musculoskeletal stressors, and then mental health stressors, etc. Then I wanted to get the big picture. Everything affects eventually quality of life. In the literature, unfortunately, there is no exact exclusive definition of quality of life. But what I choose to do is to target health-related quality of life, which is one approach to tackle quality of life. Quality of life for me is the ultimate umbrella for our work in rehabilitation. Eventually, we want to be client-centered, we want to specific, we want to be ICF, target different occupational stress issues to boost or enhance the quality of life of our clients eventually. So recently, health-related quality of life measured by different tools have been emphasized in the literature. So when you are talking about quality of life or health-related quality of life as one approach, it's all about the person's specific perception of his style, his situation, his or her situation in the system that he or culture, and the values that he belongs to. So this is something contextual. This is something client-centered. This is something very related to occupational therapy, as we know. So health-related quality of life might be changed because it's contextual, changed by any health challenge, any perceptual challenge, change, any functional status change, and any social change. Next slide, please. So as I told you before, there is no exclusive definition of health-related quality of life, but what we can say here that it does have two aspects or indicators or two axes to look at. The first one is subjective, and this is variable across individuals. This is how you perceive your life, your feelings, your situation. And the objective one, I mean, when you assess health-related quality of life, it does have a subjective aspect, and the other one is objective. Does this individual have a health issue? Does he have functional limitation, etc.? So we need this beautiful subjectivity to be client-centered. So there's a significant value for this subjectivity because we care about the individual's perception. So that being said, why quality of life? Because if you are in a challenging or stressing a situation, I choose to study the ultimate outcome in my point of view, which is the quality of life. Next slide, please. Next, please. So why to choose undergraduate health professions students? Because they are subjective to a lot or a significant amount of stress. And I mean by stress, mental stress and musculoskeletal or physical stress. And that being said, I see academic stress as a type of work-related musculoskeletal disorders. As you might know, as interested in work-related musculoskeletal disorders consumes about 4% of the world entire GDP. It's costly. So stress is bad, and stress and healthcare students are subjective to a lot of stress. So this stress might hinder or jeopardize their quality of life. This is the assumption. Next slide, please. Next. So university students, particularly medical majors, represent one of the most population subjective to stress. As I said, these critical levels of mental and physical stressors might hinder quality of life. Next one. So we have a lot of options to measure health-related quality of life. This is a very beautiful article by Bosija et al. It lists and review your options when you wanna target quality of life. See the short form, the SF-36 remains the most popular tool. However, it's lengthy, so I choose to work with short form SF-12. But we do have a lot of options like the WHO-01, the European tools. We have tons or many options to test quality of life, but for many reasons, because it's valid, reliable, and it's validated in my own language, Arabic, I choose SF-12. Next, please. So our research study of concern is published by the amazing Journal of Work. Thanks for Karen and the amazing team. It was co-authored by me and my close colleagues, research colleagues, Kanaan, Kader, Horani, Al-Jarrah, and Al-Momani, and Al-Gazo. Those are professors or associate professors of rehabilitation sciences at my beloved institution, Jordan University of Science and Technology. The study was funded and ethically approved by Jordan University of Science and Technology. So next slide, please. So we aim to comprehensively investigate physical and mental health related quality of life. So using the SF12, as I will show you shortly, you can get the physical and the mental composite or component scores. These are validated and commonly used. And then you can compare these scores across the globe, as I will show you shortly. So we want to comprehensively find the level of health-related quality of life, specifically the mental component and the physical component of this health, quality of life related measures. And we wanted to identify the associated factors or the predictors of these levels across 9 different academic majors of allied health professions, including OT, BT, speech, etc. So what we did is we created anonymous questionnaire. It was at that time paper format. We collected demographics, lifestyle variables. We collected also SF12, both components, and we calculated the components, the PCS and the MCS. And we also collected mental health stress, including depression, anxiety, and stress using DAS-21. Very beautiful and powerful tool. I highly recommend it for research studies. We also use the Nordic Musculoskeletal Questionnaire. So, and we also, for sure, we collected some academic related variables, such as how many hours per week you study, transportation, etc. How many, what is your academic load, what is your GPA, etc. So we wanted to comprehensively assess the quality of life level and its predictors, because there were many other studies, but we wanted to get the full picture, identifying the mental aspects, the physical aspect, the academic aspects, the lifestyle factors, etc. So in that regard, or in this regard, we compared between genders, males and females. I mean by comparing the PCS, the physical components, and the mental components of health-related quality of life were compared between genders, males and females, and between academic majors, the 9 academic majors. Then we conducted a multiple linear regression analysis to identify the predictors or the associated factors influencing or significantly associated with PCS and MCS. Next, please. So maybe most of you are aware about the SF12, but the SF12 asks you questions about your general health. In general, would you say your health is, and about your activity limitations, and about your accomplishment. Yeah, to what extent you accomplish these days in comparison with your usuals. Next, please. Additionally, it does have questions about your mental health and physical health. Eventually, as you can see at the bottom, you put the patient name or the client name, and then you calculate PCS and MCS. And now I want to give a tip for colleagues. Calculating PCS and MCS is not easy. It used to be easy at the time of this study conduction, because there was a website for the authors that you can manually calculate each PCS and MCS, but now you need to pay or to use algorithms. It's not as easy as it used to be. So this one of the reasons nowadays might make me hesitant a little bit to use the the SF12. But if you got the license and you send the data to the authors, quality metrics, it is easy. And it's still the most commonly used measure. Next slide, please. So results. The one beautiful thing in our studies is the large sample size. We always do power calculations, and we always stick with the standards. So we got about 800 participants. 840 participants. The majority, more than 75%, were females. This is the known at our home country institutions. Females prefer allied health professions more than males for some reason. So this is not a bias. This is the actual situation. But when you generalize the results and conclusions, you need to make this clear for the audience. Anyways, so our overall PCS physical component aspect of the SF was 45. And the MCS was 39. And to make the long story short, the PCS and the MCS is scored between 0 and 100. The higher is the better. In short words, if you compare these numbers with the entire world, either with the general population, age-matched population, or with medical students across the globe, these numbers are much less than the published numbers. So we have a problem here, or an issue that we raised the concern about, that our physical related quality of life and mental related quality of life among our students in allied health professions in Jordan is lower than the entire world, almost the entire world. Or at least the studies that I cited in my paper. You can get back to it, and we will see it in the coming slides. So in terms of physical and mental component scores, the situation was bad because it's less than the entire world. Now, between majors, there were no mental health component scores significant differences. So mental health components were the same across majors, but they were significantly different across gender. So females had significantly less scores in MCS. For physical component scores, it was the same across genders, but it was different across professions. And these significant differences make sense for me because for physical demands, it's different between majors. For optometry has less physical stress than physiotherapy, for example. So it's expected to have a significant difference across majors. Now, all students are stressed, so I didn't expect to have mental health issues differences across majors, but I did expect that females are more stressed because this is consistent across all other studies findings, like pain and stress are more prevalent among females. I don't want to enter a side discussion about hormones or gender or etc. But this is what we see in most studies. Some researchers or few researchers might claim that females tend to report their pain and stress more than males. I don't know. Anyways, so in terms of predictors, so we aim to find the level of mental and physical aspects of quality of life. We found that these are less than the world, and the other aim was to find the associated factors or the predictors. So PCS, or physical aspect of quality of life, was significantly associated with anxiety. So the more you have anxiety, the less your PCS are. Sorry, the signal of the association is not included here, but it's included in the paper. It was also significantly associated with GPA, diet self-evaluation, and upper back, hip, musculoskeletal pain. So the more you have pain and musculoskeletal pain, the less your physical quality of life score is. On the other hand, the mental component score was significantly associated with clinical training hours. The more training hours you get, the better your mental quality of life is. And with the stress, it was negatively associated with stress. It was also significantly associated with a female gender, as I told you before. Even the statistical comparison, the comparison between males and females revealed the same result. So here, being a female predicts more or less level of mental component scores of quality of life. In the first result, it was a statistical comparison between groups. Anyways, university years, GPA, sleep, self-evaluation, and musculoskeletal pain. All of these were the significantly associated factors with the mental component scores. Next, please. So here, some of our demographics table. Males were about 190, 23% of the entire population. The average age or the mean age was 21. The GPA percentage at that time, it was out of 100. Now it's out of 4.2. Anyways, it was 71%. Our samples GPA average. We had we had significant prevalence of depression, anxiety, and stress. The average score was 14, 13, and 17. This indicates that the averages are more than normal in terms of levels of mental health symptoms. So most of our population, our sample, had mild or greater level of mental health symptoms. Also, musculoskeletal pain symptoms were prevalent, mostly in upper back, hip, and thighs and neck. Also, our sample rated their diet as mostly as sort of healthy. It was not unhealthy or totally healthy. So their perception about the diet was it's sort of healthy. Now, also we measured sleep quality at that time subjectively. Recently, our studies adopted Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index, but we couldn't use standardized assessment for all variables that we were collecting. Anyways, most of the students said that their sleep is not healthy, or it was not unhealthy. I'm sorry, most of our participants, yes, say that it's either comfy or tiring and broken. So most of them say that it's tiring and broken. Their sleep patterns were not good. Next slide, please. Okay, so I went through this before. So our overall at the bottom of this table, our total SF physical component was 45, and our mental component of quality of life was 39. And both of these scores are much less than the entire the matched population in terms of age and the medical professions students across the world. Now, I'm sorry, we have graduations going around. I have to close the and in my culture they hunk when you have graduations. So anyways, this is a sign of happiness, hunking. So the mental component scores and the physical component scores were less than expected. And I say before, in terms of physical component scores, it was different across majors. And in terms of mental, but similar across gender. In terms of mental component scores, it was the same across majors, but significantly different across genders. Next slide, please. And then you can find this beautiful slide in my publication. This gives you the beta, which gives you the direction of the association, whether it's positive or negative. For example, the beta for DAS anxiety, with more anxiety, the physical component score get less because the signal is minus. And this table maintained only the significant predictors of physical component scores of quality of life and mental component scores of a quality of life. What we did is a multiple linear regression. We did two models, one for the MCS and one for the BCS. So this table shows both models and the significant predictors that we went through in the results slide. Next, please. So, and this table was taken from another study, an old study in 1998. The point of this is to show you that the BCS12 and the MCS12 across healthy population, it's not age matched, but in the paper we did cite the age matched and the students data from different countries like Brazil, Turkey, Iran, and etc. If you are interested, you can access my paper, and there is many citations of exact comparisons. But if you did have a look, if you had a look over the healthy populations, BCS, the physical component, and the MCS, it's higher than the ones that we saw in our study. It's not a statistical comparison with our results, but it does show you that our MCS and mental and physical quality of life scores are lower than the world. Next slide, please. So what I said in the previous slides is summarized here. Our scores are less than the populations in the entire population across the world, and across the world, the MCS, the mental component, was reported at 47 to 52 in USA and 9 other European countries, but this is for the entire population, not the young ones. If you shifted your attention to the mean score of MCS in the match group, 20 to 29 years, it's 50, and this is higher than what we found in our study. Our study was 39, as you can see at the top of this slide. And if you compared against medical students across different countries, the MCS in our study is less. Next slide, please. The story is the same for the physical component scores. Now, health-related quality of life, as a reminder, has two component scores if you measure it by SF12. One related more to the mental health and one related more to the physical health. And again, the same story applies on physical component scores. It's less than the entire population across the world, and it's less than the age matched in the United States, and it's less than medical students across different countries like Brazil, Iran, and Turkey. Next slide, please. So by having this slide, we are done with our study results. But I wanted to quickly show you some related studies in the line of, let us say, stressors challenging college students. We published a lot, and we are still publishing. So quickly, our last study was also published in Work. It was about the predictors of next slide, please, Dr. Karen. So this study was conducted by my dear colleague, Dr. Kanaan, and I and others. We identified the predictors of neck disability among undergraduate students, but this sample was larger, and it did include professions other than the medical professions. So this is, let us say, more heterogeneous in terms of majors. It's not only medical majors. So it was a very interesting study published recently. About 20% of our sample was complaining about neck disability as measured by neck disability scale. I think what we did here is we did a cutoff score, and we labeled students by disabled or not disabled. Maybe it was 15 the cutoff, I don't remember, but if you are interested, it's very nice study. And we did identify the predictors of neck disability. Again, anxiety, as you can say, major satisfaction, being satisfied with your major, also sleep quality, but spared PCQI, but spared quality of sleep, and what else? Where these were the predictors or significant predictors of neck disability. But the point is, neck disability was prevalent, and we did identify the predictors or influencers of these disability. Next slide, please. Another study done by me and my colleagues, including Dr. Kanaan, we did investigate musculoskeletal pain. So our main outcome measure in this case was a Nordic musculoskeletal questionnaire. This was published in the Journal of Back and Musculoskeletal Rehabilitation. Musculoskeletal pain symptoms were prevalent among allied health students majors, and mostly it was prevalent in neck, lower back, and shoulder. These are the most prevalent areas or joints or segments of the segments. And these musculoskeletal pain complaints were associated with increased training load, also with mental stress symptoms and smartphone average use. This was interesting for us at that time, maybe 5 years ago. The more you use your smartphone, the more you get musculoskeletal pain symptoms. And the conclusions of our studies are similar, that these problems, mental health or musculoskeletal or neck pain or neck disability, are prevalent, and administrators of academic institutions need to take care when planning for their educational programs, etc., offering treatment and prevention programs, so that I'm not going through the conclusions of different studies. Next, please, Dr. Karen. Another study similar, but now targeted mental health symptoms. We found that mental health symptoms across different majors of allied health students are prevalent. If you consider DASS, which is depression, anxiety, and stress scale, I think having the cutoff of minimum, I think 9 for depression, 7 for anxiety, and 14 for stress. At least 62% have depression. 65% of our sample had anxiety, and 54% of our sample had stress, which means mild stress or higher. Okay, again, compared to males, females showed more levels of stress and more levels of depression, but anxiety was the same. Again, mental health symptoms are prevalent, and we need to take care of these challenging issues. Now, the predictors of mental health symptoms were gender, physical health, diet, quality of life. Now, the predictors are important. I'm talking fast here because we started late, but what we do by identifying the predictors is pointing to the administrators and stakeholders. If you influence these predictors or influence associated factors, you might reduce the intensity of mental health issues or physical pain issues or quality of life issues. That's in theory, because our studies are cross-sectional. We don't have causality, but in theory, these are the factors that you need to manipulate. Next slide, please, Doctor. We did a very similar study to the one of concern today, quality of life among healthcare students. Now, the sample is different, not allied health students. I did collect data from medical students, dentistry students, I think nursing and pharmacy, not allied health like PTOT, etc. And my target was to study their quality of life and their predictors during COVID, because COVID pandemic forced teachers and students to adopt online teaching. And this is a major contextual change. I expected to have some changes in mental health, physical health, etc. The interesting thing is the SF scores, the physical and the mental component scores were higher than what I did find across our students before the pandemic. In other words, during normal situations, the quality of life of students was lower than during the pandemic. However, the sample is different, and I did not do a statistical comparison, but it should have been similar. Maybe medical students and dentistry students' quality of life is higher than allied health. I don't know, but it's worth to mention. Anyways, most of the students were not satisfied with their online teaching, so that their quality of life indicators were relatively low. And we did identify the predictors. One of the important predictors of quality of life during COVID was the satisfaction with distance learning activities and physical activity level. You know how much Corona affected our physical activity, etc. We also identified other predictors. Next slide, please. Now, for students, I don't know if we have a lot of students. I do love to do experimental studies, but it costs much more time and resources than cross-sectional studies. Usually, I do the design by the question. So most of the questions that I raised in my previous studies can be answered through cross-sectional studies, but cross-sectional studies are limited. They don't offer treatment interventions, new efficacy or causality. Now, when you do cross-sectional studies, you need to do, I like to go quantitative, but you need to do quantitative and qualitative. You need to make sure that you are using valid, sensitive, reliable, clinically meaningful, and easy to score measures. Most of, as a reviewer, I do a lot of reviews. Many of our colleagues across the world just create their own questionnaires. Why to reinvent the wheel? I tend to use standardized assessments, particularly when it's validated in the language that you are testing in. Now, you need to do to make sure that your sample is homogeneous and the size of the sample is very good, and the recruitment process and the feasibility of the study are very important points to consider for our colleagues who are conducting studies or our graduate students who are interested. Next slide, please. Uh, this slide is talking about the statistics that I have used in this study and many studies, descriptive statistics and baseline comparison. Based on the data, I might use t-test, ANOVA or chi-square, and correlation and multiple regression, I might use linear or logistic regression. This is just a tip for graduate students or individuals who are thinking about similar studies. Next. So cross-sectional design is limited. It's not the most popular design. I love it because it's easy to answer some question. I don't like to do everything in cross-sectional studies. I do RCTs, but when you simplicity is the ultimate complexity. If you can answer your question by a cross-sectional design, why not? But it's limited because it does not give causality, as mentioned at the second limitation point. In our studies, our samples are not balanced in terms of gender or majors, academic majors. This is because we use convenient samples. But it's the reality. Females are the majority in our institutions. Most of our measures are self-report. I don't know if there's a non-self-report measure for depression or quality of life. I'm not aware. Maybe you can find for strength, for ergonomics, but not for quality of life, mental health, and pain, etc. Next slide, please. So in future, try to, if you want to study such if you want to conduct such studies, try to make your study sample more homogeneous in terms of majors and gender. Try to use longitudinal cohort or longitudinal designs to see the progress of each problem across years, like what is the issue of quality of life or situation of quality of life or mental health or musculoskeletal symptoms in the first year opposed to the graduation year or second year. And then experimental designs are always needed to create and test new treatment methodologies that targets mental health, physical health, or quality of life among students. Next, please. So in conclusion, we can say that mental health issues or symptoms, physical health complaints or musculoskeletal pain, let us be more specific, are prevalent among undergraduate students in Jordan. Also, the level of quality of life in its both types or subscores, the mental and physical, component scores are lower than age-matched and medical students around the world. Our scores are much less. We did not statistically compare, but taking the means. Now we identified the predictors of quality of life and predictors of mental health and physical health, but for the sake of this presentation, let us be focused more on the quality of life. We identify the predictors of quality of life in its both types or subscores. And these are delivered for stakeholders and administrators to think about it when designing academic plans and academic activities. Longitudinal studies are needed and experimental studies are needed. Next slide, please. I always thank my great institution. They are generous. They financed my education in the States, and they are granting me grants to conduct research and to attend workshops and conferences. Now I'm going to France. I hope to meet all colleagues in Paris within next 2 months or so at the end of August. Many thanks for Karen Jacobs. I have been dealing with many editors and journals. Karen takes the editorial work differently. She walk you through the publication process. She never give up on a paper. So thank you, Karen, for your great support for our papers and work. I also want to thank Work Journal, IOS, and the Lindsley Sosa and the editorial team. Thank you. My research team and colleagues, I mentioned my co-authors in the previous slides. Thank you for your help, and thanks for my graduate students, amazing graduate students. Always I have to thank my wife and daughters. Thank you.
Thank
Francis.
you.
And if you forward it to the last slide, and okay, these are the references. More. Next slide.
There we
Do you
go.
start at the last slide that okay, this one. If you have questions, if we have time for questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Oh, well, thank you. This was so interesting. And, I want to just extend my thank you for publishing in Work. And I'm so looking forward to seeing you in person at the World Federation of Occupational Therapists conference at the end of August. It'll be great to see you.
Same here. We are excited to see you.
Yeah, and I'm looking to see if we have any questions. I don't see any posted. Let me just see here. I don't see any posted. You shared, future directions,
Yeah.
and I know you have all sorts of different ideas. Um, are there other questions that you would like to have answered that perhaps might take you down a different path for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, what one of our recent interesting studies was creating a mobile app to treat work-related musculoskeletal pain among office workers. We did publish that, so we might do something for undergraduate students, medical students, or medical profession students, creating something uh, for their mental or physical health to comply with physical activity level, good sleep, etc. So now we did a lot of cross-sectional studies. It's time to do something experimental, I think.
That sounds great. And this would be an app targeted to students or general population.
We did one specific one for office workers, that for low back pain. Now we identified different problems across different occupational groups, including students. Now we are presenting today about students. I'm answering you about students. So students' mental health, students' musculoskeletal pain issues and ergonomics, and students' quality of life might be tackled through different approaches. One approach that I'm interested in is mobile apps because it's consistent with the personality of this generation, you know?
Yeah, I think, apps have been so much of a lifeline for so many people, particularly during COVID. We could, do yoga from an app. We could
Mm.
do, all sorts of ways of analyzing the ergonomics in our home. I think that's a great idea to have.
Yeah, the thing is, and it's the challenge also. It's a challenge and a need in the same thing. We have a lot of apps around the world, but we don't have apps in our students' language, own language, because, for example, engineering students will not understand medical terminology used in other medical apps, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So in Arabic, uh, we don't have enough apps in Arabic.
Yes. And it sounds like it would be something that would be a wonderful project. So I
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing.
Mindfulness also, mindfulness for mental health. So we can do a lot of mindfulness interventions that might help to reduce both of mental and physical challenges facing students.
Absolutely. And we really can't separate the physical from the psychosocial. So,
Yeah,
to do both would be is exactly how your philosophy.
yeah, it has been correlated in all of the studies. Mental health always jump in our physical pain studies and vice versa. Strongly, it jumps strongly.
Yes, yes. Well, we're going to have to conclude this webinar. Thank you for taking the time to share your work. It's so fascinating and so important. And on behalf of the journal work and iOS Press, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise. And I want to thank everyone who came here. This webinar will appear on our YouTube channel for Learn at Work. And you can find it also a link in the future on our um, website for work, which is workjournal.org. So thank you, everyone, and do take care of yourself.
Thank you, Karen, for your great contribution. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.